Welcome. This is Michael Oatman. Welcome to Illegal Knowledge. And this is IKTV 509. We're live on Friday. This is part one of two. The title of the show is Let There Be Sanity in Government. And again, it's part one of a two-part episode, season finale. The second part is the 21st of June in 2013. That would also be the third Friday of the month at 8:30. We're not probably going to be on the air at this exact time beyond June because there's a lottery system here at Access Tucson, and what we do is we pick we all get to pick and see which time slots we want. So there could be a possible schedule change starting in July. But for now, until then, replays are the Sundays at midnight, every Sunday, Sunday nights at midnight, going into Monday. Right now, there's a bit of a problem because usually down here on the screen right here, I usually have the Illegal Knowledge little website up.com. The thing that's doing the graphics, it's called a Compix. It's down. No one knows what happens to it when it doesn't work. I guess it doesn't turn on. Apparently, who knows? But there's no way of putting graphics up. So I'm just going to tell you I'll be on Twitter during the show. If the calls, you can go to the website. Well, let me see if I can get this one. The website is over here at Illegal Knowledge. It is, you can call 624-2792 or Twitter at IKTV Season 5. And that's 5 with the number 5. And I'm going to be checking periodically on the Twitter feed just to see what's going on if anyone wants to ask any questions. We're talking about let there be sanity in government. Excuse me a second. I have to get my cord out of the way there. And so you can go to the website, and I hope you're watching all watching Bill Maher. He was on earlier, and for the season 6, it'll be starting in July. You can go to the website as well, send your topics by Twitter or questions, or if you want to volunteer or anything like that, you can do that all up at the website. Right up over here on contact, it'll give you a number of ways. Phone numbers, Twitter, volunteer, send your topics. Okay, so anyway, with that out of the way, let's get on to, there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm going to cover tonight. So I also want to say hi, Kyler. So talking about sanity in government, it's something that's obviously seriously lacking. The U.S. government is becoming obviously less and less effective, more so and more so weekly and daily. It obviously needs help. I think that it's proven fairly well recently, at least, in the last, partially during Clinton's term, partially, definitely with all the cronyism in the Bush administration and with all the bitter bipartisan bullshit with the obstructionist Republicans preventing anything from getting done. It's proven that it pretty much can't fix itself, and I would propose that it's up to the people to force the government to serve the people, which is what it was supposed to be doing in the first place. There are things, and I'll talk about these tonight, that we can do to restore sanity to government. And there are some current issues that relate to all this, and I'd like to just sort of go over them. This might take a lot of the show, so I hope I can get through this all pretty quickly. But there were some current issues from the last show that, obviously we were doing the, if you saw that, it was the hip hop show, so he didn't really get to talk about anything then. I did mention that the whole Boston bomber people were captured. Looks like everyone just sort of forgot about the other 3 people. I'm not quite sure what that was with the people who took the backpack out, and you kind of wonder what they were thinking, why they wanted to be accomplices to terrorist bombing after the fact. That I have no idea. Maybe they're just stupid kids and not thinking. I have no idea. Anyway, today is day 100 of the Guantanamo Bay. We're down in Cuba, communist Cuba. We're our sworn enemy in the Western Hemisphere. We somehow have managed to have kept a military detention facility there for the last more than 10 years now, I guess. It's day 100 of their hunger strike down in Guantanamo Bay. There are 102 prisoners on this strike. They're all facing legal limbo, which is where they don't have any charges. They have been basically approved to go home, and they're not being released. So without being charged, it's basically just indefinite detention without charges or trial. So they've basically said, okay, well, anyway, I think there's something like a good 10 or 20, maybe 30 something of them being force-fed now intravenously.
You're in black, man.
How am I in black? Oh. What?
You want to be on control?
Yeah. Well, Elmo right there.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Now
Yeah, I have no idea. Okay. That was weird. Yeah, apparently I was not showing any video there. Sorry about that. Anyway, they aren't being charged with anything. A lot of them are Yemenis, and they're not being returned because of the whole underwear bomber guy. They were scheduled to be returned, and now they're just sitting there, and they're doing this hunger strike. So hopefully that might get resolved soon. Let's see how long that goes. Obviously, Obama said he'd fix this in the first, year of his administration, and he's into his second term. So the other thing that's weird about the whole war on terror, there was just a congressional hearing regarding the authorized use of military force, the AUMF, for the whole war on terror. They want a 20-year extension, which is also complete bullshit. McCain said it would be 100 years, so I guess that they're asking for 20 may not be as bad as McCain's proposal. I'm trying to think of why exactly we need to, because is it so we can fight in Yemen? Can't we just simply authorize military force for each individual? Okay, is this an issue in Yemen over here? Is this an issue in Mali over here? Or I guess I should go that way for Mali and that way for Yemen. But, and then still are we in Afghanistan? And, it seems like an overreach, and I think that's one of the problems that's going on with the broken government, and I'm going to keep talking about the problems here before I get to another one here regarding Benghazi in Libya. The whole thing that the GOP was trying to do last week, which was to they had on ABC News, I guess, and was also obviously on Fox News, that they were basically trying to make a scandal out of the whole Benghazi thing, and then this week with the IRS, and the thing is that the whole point with the White House having some sort of say in how the talking points were changed and scrubbed and whatever. That was the CIA doing that, and the CIA likes to do those things, and they often do it without any kind of oversight from the president, particularly, or Congress, or anything. It was a fake report given to ABC, and then it was, I guess, it may have been a fake report from Fox News. But both were reporting on it. With the IRS, so I mean, it's basically a non-issue. I mean, yeah, 4 people were killed, but it's because the level of funding for the agencies for the Secret Service and whatnot, for protection for the consulate or whatever it was, whatever sort of diplomatic or non-diplomatic mission that was in Benghazi, the funding for that wasn't there, and that was denied from the Republicans because they refused to fund anything and because they refused to do anything. So to blame Obama for something that was created because of a lack of funding perpetrated by, the Republicans because they don't like spending money, especially on things like protecting our embassies, it's a bit of hypocrisy for them to then go and try to blame Obama for not having somehow whitewashed some. It's just ridiculous. The lack of funding to the agencies is the culprit. Also, with the IRS thing, also the same thing happened as I was listening today. They had the assistant director, the guy who was the acting director, and he was, I guess, a deputy director for the IRS, and the inspector general from the Treasury for the IRS were sitting in front of Congress. And it turns out that the IRS director, who is no longer there, but when all this was going on, when these rules and lists and whatnot were adopted, the guy who was the director at that time was actually a Bush appointee. The new guy who was on the congressional hearing today, he's like a career mid-manager level kind of guy who I guess he just happened to be the head guy at the time when everybody left. And because there was no appointee from Obama, probably because the Republicans were blocking the confirmation of any, the other thing that I thought was interesting is that there's absolutely no discussion of corporate tax reform regarding elections funding, because all of this was about the 501c4s, and 501c4s are 501c3s are the nonprofit, like, American Red Cross, or, just to name anything, any of those. Planned Parenthood, I guess, maybe, I don't know if it is one or not, actually, but or any kind of, Jobs with Justice, or all those are 501c3 nonprofits. The 501c4s are typically the political action committee. They're places that are allowed to do less than half of their work in terms of a political sphere, but they can't do the majority of it. They have to be doing some sort of community service or some sort of betterment for something. I guess there's like 5 different areas where they can perform, so they have to pick one or several and then do that for the majority of their work, but they can also have a political aim as long as it's not more than half of what they do. So, or the majority or whatever, which is, I guess, more than half. Unless, I guess, if you're talking filibuster in the Senate, then it's 60%. Anyway, but so there is no discussion of the problem that they were out of money to hire new people. They had something like 70,000 requests for the IRS had 501c4 requests numbering up to like 70,000. They had something like 150 agents working 70,000. So basically, I had to triage. They had to just look and see. Oh, this one's good. These will have to. Okay, these will have to get looked at, and so they just developed a streamlined process, apparently, which, because the majority of the ones after Citizen United that came in were from the Tea Party, it was the 90% of them were Tea Party applications. So they were like, well, anything with a Tea Party in it, we just need to make sure that they're doing the right, it was a bad choice of words, and whoever was working in the Cleveland office who said to do that should be sacked. And I guess because the guy who was the director when all this was going on has left already, I guess that's taken care of. This middle manager guy who's the acting director right now, it was funny because he's like, I don't know anything. I don't know that. I don't know that. It's like he got thrust into this job, and he really should not be working that job. He's obviously out of place, and he obviously doesn't know what he's doing. And no wonder it gets all confused, because you don't get your appointees put in, and then you don't have the proper people at the agency operating the agency, and then you wonder why things get overlooked and screwed up. Anyway. Talking about corporate election funding reform, one of the things that needs to be done, obviously, is to overturn Citizens United. You can go to citizen.org, and there's a petition there to do that. The thing is that corporations are not people. We need a constitutional amendment to stop that due to the ruling on the Supreme Court, because it doesn't look like they're going to rule any other way anytime soon. Another thing that was interesting new is that Sherrod Brown introduced a new piece of legislation for banking reform, which would end too big to fail and too big to jail. It would, or at least try on the too big to jail part. It would sort of return back to Glass-Steagall insofar as that it would via the FDIC, it would separate out the investment arm from the traditional banking. So that if you're doing high-risk investments, you wouldn't be underwritten by the FDIC, whereas the accounts that were traditionally bank accounts would still be obviously under the FDIC. Another thing about elections and banking and everything like that is that we need third-party reform so that people can run on third-party tickets and actually, get, on the ballot without difficulty. Arizona was making it more difficult. I've run obviously twice for president with the Project White House thing, once as a Democrat and once as a Green Party, and that's what they call dark horse candidates, where you don't get a lot of votes. I mean, in my case, I placed third in the Green Party in Arizona overall, first in Project White House. So, I wouldn't say I did that bad. I won Apache County, so yay. But the problem is that the two political parties, the dominant political parties right now, which are obviously Republican and Democrat, don't want to make any room. They need to make more room for other parties. This could be Libertarian, this could be, Green Party, this could be, there's a thing called a Truth Party, the Truth Party. The thing is that unless you get on with the number of petition signatures saying that people are registered or want to be registered as in that party, like say the Green Party, you need to have like 5% of the electorate. You can't get any election funding in Arizona anyway. And I would imagine that in other states it's probably roughly the same. There needs to be a federal, if you're campaigning for federal office, there needs to be a federal blanket rule which states that you can apply for equitable funding. I mean, so say Mitt Romney is spending $54 billion or whatever the hell he's spending. You don't get $54 billion, but you can get some based on that you have so many people, perhaps you have a percent of the electorate that may consider you, and it's a catch-22 when you even look at it that way, because in order to get your name out there, you need to have the funding. In order to get the funding, people need to know who you are, and so it's just this big cycle of not being able. And some kind of reform has to happen there, so that people can just say, "Look, I seriously want to run." You probably have a minimum of signatures that you need to show, or something like that. but and then there should be automatic funding that way. One of the things that I that's in the title here, which was the whole marijuana legalization, that needs to happen. That's just ridiculous. We're spending so much money on prisons and the drug war, and the whole the drag on society that has of creating that underclass. We need that should be a really good platform, particularly for a third party. Obviously, neither the Democrats or the Republicans have picked up on that. Over half now of the country wants to legalize marijuana, like just straight up, not medicinally, but just legal. So nobody's touching it. No major party is touching it, and it would be a great thing for some other party to do. Truth Party, Libertarians, Green Party, any of those. It's the other thing, is that if you tax it, it creates a bunch of revenue. I mean, there's like billions of dollars of untaxed transactions going around in marijuana because it's not legal. It's on Schedule 1. It needs to be at least removed from Schedule 1. Perhaps studied for a brief amount of time, but it's not like it doesn't have a long and storied history. A lot of it is reefer madness and propaganda, but there's very good, if not strictly scientifically, but at least anecdotal evidence suggesting that there's really nothing wrong with marijuana. The only way you can overdose on marijuana is to eat a whole lot of it. You have to, cook it down to butter first, and then just probably get sick on the butter before you overdose on the marijuana. Anyway, no one's ever died from it. It's kind of like the new the marijuana legalization is politically like the new gay marriage in terms of that. I know it's a different form of liberty that's being discussed because one is equal rights and the other one is equal access to the things that are around on the planet. Calling a plant illegal is kind of ridiculous. Considering it just grows, so and then obviously you would use taxation on sales to support infrastructure, to rebuild the infrastructure in the country, and to fund agencies that need funding, to help create jobs, to help create alternative energies, to do all of these things. We'll be talking more about alternative energies on the last show of the season, by the way. Also having a sane policy on immigration is a wonderful way to improve the economy. I want to explain this because the Heritage Foundation has been coming out with study after study forever, stating how immigrants are a drag on the economy, and I guess what they're doing is they're basing this on, they're saying that emergency room visits, and they're estimating the cost of education, and their what else? I'm not sure what. Oh, maybe roads. I don't know what else. I'm not sure what else they'd be referring to really. But I guess fire, police, things like that. Okay, right, but they're here now anyway. So first of all, they're already using that. So saying that that keeping immigration law the same as it is, or just trying to deport everyone, which would cost a ridiculous amount of money because you'd have to go track them all down, and look at the man hours involved in that. So that's not really an answer. They're saying that you would want to not have immigration reform because it would cost all this money, but they're forgetting that these people are also contributing to society. They're doing work, they're buying things, there, and that's the whole basis of why that it would be better in having a more open immigration policy would be beneficial. Now, you see, economies in general function better when there's liquidity in the economy. Okay, when there's liquidity in the market, when there's a lot of money floating around and circulating around. So if there's more people in the marketplace, in the economy, and they're spending money and it's moving around a lot, then the economy does better. Even though it's a set amount of money and you're just passing it around faster, it actually makes the economy perform better. And it makes more things, it results in a larger amount of purchases. That contributes to a larger number of employees needed, which lowers the unemployment rate, which then you have more money again in the basically the middle class sector, and you end up with a more healthy middle class. And if you've all noticed recently in the last since the 70s, say maybe the 60s, the middle class has been really deteriorating. Pretty much since maybe the mid 70s, when all the steel mills closed down because Nixon opened up China and all the steel mills realized Chinese labor was way, way, way cheaper than the unionized steel workers. That kind of put a big drag on the economy, that we weren't producing our own steel anymore, because that was a large part of what we were doing. Particularly with the interstates were being completed, and that required a lot of road work and steel and cement. You're going to have with an expanded middle class, especially, you're going to have because of you have more people, you're going to have more ideas. You're going to have more innovation. And those are the drivers of what we were doing way back at the turn, and we're still sort of doing it now with like maybe some sort of tech and biotech, but we were like the world's innovators since the 40s. That's kind of slowed down. Because we're not allowing ideas to flow freely. School exchange programs are a good thing. But just people forget that we're just prima facie we're a nation of immigrants. So, other than Native Americans, the people in the United States all came here via immigration. Okay? Even if you were born here, your ancestors immigrated. Unless you're Native American, obviously. And to just say, okay, well, we're here now, and, whatever. And particularly at the same time, well, somehow just awfully, like, cracking down on Native American populations and keeping them in poverty. That's just the worst of the worst. It's that it's this cronyism, it's this network of the elite cabal or whatever, or good old boys, any of that, that just think that they're just somehow entitled just because of something. Who knows? Because my name's blah blah blah, Huffington blah blah, it's ridiculous. Anyone, again, the thing that I've said a few times before is the value of your worth, to society is what you are able to do with what you're given, and that's it's interesting because the people who have the most don't tend to really do that much. They might, hire some servants and play golf, They don't really innovate. They're not creating. They say that they're job creators, but they're talking in China and Indonesia and India and, Malaysia and wherever else, but not here. Switch topics here a little bit. Another reason I was going down the current issues that relate to why the government is becoming less and less effective is a lack of regulation. Not an utter lack, but you look at places like West Texas, where there's like the fertilizer plant had something like 400 tons of fertilizer on the property that needed to be, periodically inspected, and they didn't mention that they had any. I guess the threshold was like half a ton, right? And so no one. I mean, and it's like, welcome to Texas. There's no regulation here. Feel free to do what you want. Although shit will blow up periodically. Here's what it's really like. The lack of regulation is the new terrorism. Because you have, say in Boston you have, 3 dead. Benghazi you have 4 dead. Well, in West Texas you got 40 dead, and now with these tornadoes, which, mind you, I'll tie this in. It's weather, yes. There's 7 and maybe another 6 dead. Global climate change, which is caused by a lack of regulation. The EPA is supposed to regulate these things. They're obviously underfunded. That agency is. It's partially that's responsible for these for potentially some of the severity, at least the timing. If you notice, they're getting earlier and earlier in the year, and later. It's like it's going to go all year round soon. You didn't used to have hurricane-looking lows floating through, the mid-continent up north in the Dakotas and in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now that's like the standard weather pattern. It kind of looks like if you ever saw the movie The Day After Tomorrow, they have some interesting weather-related graphics going on there. And it looks kind of like that. Very large storms that are able to maintain an eye or something resembling it over land. And they're just big low pressures, and it looks like that's what we're getting. It's kind of scary because that doesn't turn out very well if you've ever seen the movie. So climate change is being ignored completely by these the Republican climate deniers, the Tea Party especially. I guess they think that God created everything, and so God will not destroy it via climate change or something. I'm not sure. The news is that the Earth is not 6,000 years old, and we do periodically go through ice ages, and the sea levels change, and sometimes that happens because of weird things, maybe with, who knows, with our position relative to the sun, with maybe the sun itself. We haven't really studied it that long to make a good guess at what's going on there. But we do know that it's tied to carbon dioxide levels. And we know that as they increase, that it ends up, it's the greenhouse gas effect, the greenhouse effect. You trap the heat, and you're not allowing it to escape. Again, with the melting of the ice caps and the melting of glaciers, you're reducing the area which is white, off of which the sunlight that's entering can reflect. So you're trapping more heat, and so it should accelerate exponentially. What we have to do is we have to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. We can't just stop putting them up there. We have to actually take the number and move it down, which means we need to figure out how to incorporate them maybe back into the soil with proper farming techniques. Maybe, and again, this would help with the economy as well. And maybe with just simple sequestration, with reusing the byproducts of petroleum manufacture to create algae produced oil. You can modify them to do that. It's working right now. Let's see. But if we had smarter and enforced regulation, it would definitely help curb global climate change. And I mean smarter regulation. I don't mean just more rules just to have more rules. And then when we do have rules, we need to be enforcing them. Like, so you don't end up with something like West Texas. So the funding of the agencies that do these regulations, we obviously need to fund them. And they're not being funded. And again, we're getting back to the Heritage Foundation here. They're not getting funded because no one is authorizing the funding. Congress is the entity that authorizes funding for these agencies. They are the people who do the budget, and the Heritage Foundation has just recently, it's been leaked, that they've told their GOP leaders to simply do nothing. In the House, the U.S. House of Representatives, the Republicans have been instructed to find scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal ad infinitum, ad nauseum for the next 3 years. In the Senate, the Heritage Foundation told them to filibuster everything for the next 3 years. Hopefully they lose their majorities, or, well, what do you call it in the Senate? They lose their minority to an extent where they have fewer than 40 members. Or someone ends the filibuster rule or makes it so that you filibuster once and it takes 60, you filibuster twice and it takes 59, 58, 57, and so on until you get back to 50. And or that you have to actually sit there and filibuster. You can't actually, just threaten to do it and say, oh, okay, fine then. And again, this is the Heritage Foundation telling our lawmakers how to behave. The Heritage Foundation was funded in 1972 by Joseph Coors. It has a whole bunch of donors since then. Most notably, the whole guy who went after Clinton for the blowjob or whatever, Richard Mellon Scaife. He is one of the major donors to that, and it's a think tank supposedly, but I don't really think they think very much. It's more just like the Old Boys Network. That's really what it is. It's just an extension of, well, let's see. I guess it's really an extension of the Ku Klux Klan. Yeah, that's right. The Old Boys Network, the GOP, controlled by the Klan. And maybe some influences from the Nazi Party. In fact, yes, because there was Project Paperclip after World War II, and we brought a whole bunch of Nazis over here. And they certainly have infiltrated the government, and they certainly have created a security type state where you got the CIA and the NSA and all these agencies that are going into, well, they say it's counterterrorism, espionage, whatnot, but it's really just a surveillance state. It's like an overreaching big brother watching you surveillance state. The Nazis, that is. And the GOP are like this hybrid of Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan. Because the Klan just wants, their white Aryan race to survive and everyone else to flounder which is, well, you look at what's going on, and that's pretty much what's happening. Uh, you know, you don't really, by and large, have too many billionaire families that are not white old men, or at least headed by. This old boy network permeates further than just that. You have, the subjugation of women. You have the whole, well, obviously you have racism. That's pretty much what's going on here with Obama, I would suppose, with why they just absolutely detest Obama. It's because, well, he's black. He's not one of them. He's not an old white guy. It's why you have in the military the whole rape culture surrounding the Pentagon and the military. The person just the other day who was supposedly overseeing making sure that there would be fewer and fewer and hopefully no more rapes, was himself running a prostitution ring or something like that, or some sort of. It's just you gotta wonder, and even into fraternities with date rape, with frats or whatever you want to call it, frat rape and hazing, and you see the thing is, they need to keep this old boys network because the way that they're able to maintain this power and where their position is in society is because of that network. If it weren't for that network, if it were not there, they would not have the availability, the resources, the connections, anything that they have to keep perpetrating the cabal, any of these things. If the whole cabal, the old boys network, if that were to collapse or become less effective, you see, the people who the old white men here and their progeny would have to make it on their own, and because they tell everybody else, hey, you got to make it on your own. This is, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and blah blah. Well, they're not. I mean, they're relying on their inheritances. They're relying on their connections. They're relying on. They're not doing it themselves. They would have to be forced to do it themselves. If the old boys network, the cabal, were to collapse, they would be forced to fend for themselves like they tell everyone else to do. And they are hypocrites. And why would they want to do that? They would have to take responsibility for their own actions, and they would have to pay any penalties for what they have wrought, for their negligence and for their greed and for their malfeasance. Because they do it all the time, and the reason they get away with it is because they are backed up by that network. So, yay. The GOP is Nazi, KKK, and as is the whole cabal. Good news. To move on a little bit here, because I guess we have about 10, 15 minutes left here. The good news is that the good old boys, the old boys, are getting older and they're dying. The demographics in the U.S., it's changing such that there should be, if the current GOP stays its course of intolerance, hatred for women, hatred for Hispanics, hatred for any Latina, blacks, anything like that, they're not going to get elected to any kind of nationwide office again beyond 2016. And basically the states are going to go that way too. Texas right now is becoming fairly purple. Thank you, Austin. Keep it weird. And then blue. we'll go Democrat. Now, the Democrats aren't providing that much of a really good alternative. I've always said this because they're an alternative, but compared to a pile of dog shit, nothing looks good, right? Like to have nothing on your plate, rather than you're right. So it's time for a third party to replace the GOP. Let's talk about solutions here and how we can actually fix these things. If we had a third party that just simply replaced the GOP, and we wanted it to appeal to their base, to the base of the GOP, which is essentially people who vote against their own self-interest, we'd have to convince them somehow to vote with their self-interest. The Truth Party would probably help us because you would just tell them what's going on. We would need to do better this time. We would probably want to support marijuana legalization and taxation and corporate personhood. We need to put that money into infrastructure, into green energies, into green jobs. We need to allow more legal immigration, which will create an economic stimulus. It will improve the economy. Like I said, it will actually create more circulation of currency. And when you have more liquidity in a market, you have a more robust market. You need to close Guantanamo. Stay tuned because not just to me, but to the news the news in general. In the next maybe week or month or so, it sounds like Obama's getting ready to release a statement on what to do with Guantanamo. The downside of that is that he's probably going to also release a legal memorandum about how somehow he managed to justify, a 20-year extension of the AUMF authorization of use of military force and the detention facility. So who knows, or some sort of other extraordinary indefinite detention policy that was a holdover from the Bush era. Hopefully that does not happen. Hopefully he comes to his senses. Where are we at here? Okay, so it is the right time. So let's see. All right, check Twitter here. We need to get our bases, in addition to closing Guantanamo, we need to get our bases out of Mecca and Medina. Not a bit more. No, I thought I had that bookmarked. I don't know. We need to, for some reason, we have our bases in Mecca and Medina. Mecca, the holiest town in Islam, along with Medina, which is where the Muhammad prophet was born. Let's see. We in Saudi Arabia, these two towns exist. We have, I don't see any. Nope, nobody sent me anything. Okay, I'm just checking. So anyway, in Saudi Arabia, Mecca and Medina, two towns there that are the holiest of the holies to Islam, of places. It's got the big black rock thing where they whirl around and whatnot. We have Air Force bases there for some reason. I mean, why do they need to be there? I mean, let's say we want them in Saudi Arabia. Right. It's a big country. There's, it's like probably, twice the size of Texas or something. there's plenty of space. They don't need to be there right in those two towns, but we have them there. It's a big reason why Osama bin Laden said anyway, or was said about that he was attacking the coal and things like that. We don't need so much. I mean, we have 11 aircraft carrier fleets. 11 fleets of ships with aircraft carriers. We don't really need to have bases in 135 countries. We can pare that down. And if we did that, we would save a whole bunch of money that we could put toward things like green jobs, like education, like maybe bringing kids' tuitions down, maybe having interest-free student loans, things like that would be a really good idea. Speaking of over in the Middle East, we should probably go and come back, and because what this does is if we get out of these places, we're going to have a whole lot of fewer Islamic radicals pissed off at us. If we help Syria, we help make Palestine a reality and a stable one at that. It would go very far, and we would not need to put the money in. The effort would not be, the money wouldn't be needed to create all of the waste that we're creating in terms of just destruction and inefficiencies, and particularly within the military. And it would to the Republicans' point, a sleeker, smarter government may be a very good idea. There is a good amount of bloat. I mean, you all heard about the $2,000 toilet seat and the $10,000 hammer and I mean, obviously it's just a hammer. It's nothing special, So to do this, we need to work together. We need sanity. We need collective sanity, just ourselves. Like, we ourselves, just our people themselves, as everyday Americans of any stripe, we need to come together. We need to work together. We need our own sanity. We need to, vote. We need to sign petitions. We need to get up to we need to contact our senators, our representatives, and if they don't follow what we want them to do, and they just ignore us and they follow their lobbyists or their money, they're donating super PACs, we need to vote them out of office. Because no amount of money is going to change unless you go around and screw with the actual voting mechanisms. You're not going to change the outcome if there's a real public groundswell in favor of one candidate over the other, particularly because because that the candidate that was not paying attention to the people didn't get any votes. We have to start treating our political candidates with less apathy so that we can actually have accountability from our government. And that's pretty much the show. I think there's about another minute or two left for credits here. I'm going to say go over to the website one more time. Where is that? Let's see where we're at. Is that right over? Oh, where is it? Okay, well, we're switching over here. That's our show. Good night. See you on the 21st of June.
Don't believe him. Reality